Okay, today we're going to master a track together, and by together I mean that I'm going to do it all and you're going to watch. But hopefully it's going to be helpful and insightful for you. I'm going to show you all the hardware settings, plugins I use, all the settings and stuff, but the really important thing is mindset and approach and why I'm doing what I'm doing. This isn't a complete guide to mastering. I'm just showing you one track and what I do to one track. And you might even disagree with some of my decisions, and that's fine as well. But the point of this is to show you, like I said, why I'm doing stuff. And hopefully the plan is to make a load of these, and after you've watched 5 or 10, you'll have a really good understanding of the mastering process and how different genres sometimes need a different approach, how different frequency ranges need different processing and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to crack on. Like I've said in previous videos, I don't have time to edit videos. So my YouTube channel is pretty much me just hitting record, doing some stuff and then uploading it. So there might be stuff I forget. There might be stuff I don't explain fully. So apologies in advance. I think everything's working. I've done a quick test, but drop me some comments with questions. If there's any other genres or any other specific things you want me to go through, let me know and I'll try and make videos on that as well. So let's just dive in. I've got a sort of country Americana mix here from Amelia Quinn. She's very kindly let me use one of her tracks to do this. I'll put all her details in the description. If you like the tune, you can go and check it out. She's very talented. I'm sure she's going to blow up pretty soon. She's gigging all over the place and doing really well. So let's transition over to Studio One, where I've got the mix. And you'll see these are two of the masters I did previously. Sometimes I like to do a master and then I might want to make like a little change. So I'll do a second one and then I can just A/B them to see which I prefer. Sometimes I might send them to the artist and give them the option as well, depending on what the change is. So these two here are already done. These are the finished ones that have been approved, or one of them was approved. I'll explain why there's 4 different tracks. So this is the original mix. I send that mix out through my hardware. It gets captured back into the computer here, and then I apply digital clipping and limiting and loudness stuff to the hardware capture to get the final master. And then from that master, I copy that to do the fade-ins and fade-outs, because annoyingly in Studio One, if I render the fades on this channel, if the artist comes back and says, actually, could you do a tighter fade, or could you make that fade longer, I can't just go back and undo those easily. So I just copy it and have a duplicate, just in case. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's a pain. So I have that extra copy. This is the raw. These are the fades as they were provided to me, and this is with the fades done nice and neatly. So this is the mix. Starting point of mastering, obviously, is to listen. So I've had a listen already. I've got a few ideas of what I think it needs. And my first thing to approach is reduction. What needs controlling, or what needs taking out. That's the kind of the key first step. Because a lot of the mastering process is additive, as in we're adding volume, we're adding EQ, we're making things louder. If there are any problem areas, if we don't treat those first, those problem areas are going to get added to, and then it's going to be more difficult to remove them, because if we use any kind of saturation, imagine there's a problem at, say, let's just pick 500 Hertz, there's a problem, right? It's too muddy. If we then run that through loads of valves and transformers and loudness and saturation, that problem area is going to have harmonics added to it, which are then, it means there's more information to then try and take away. So this is the first thing I do, listen to the track. I tend to get an EQ up as well, just so if I spot anything in the audio, I can do a little scan around and sort of have a listen. But in this track, the mix was really good. I was pretty happy with the mix. I was very happy with the mix. It came in sounding great. So there's not really any reductive stuff I wanted to do in terms of muddiness or sort of the overall tonal balance of the track. So the next step, oh, I tell a lie actually. There was one thing here, just a little bit of sibilance control. So this is Tokyo Dawn Labs Arbiter, TDR. They make great plugins. They're my favourite. This is a really good de-esser. It's really nice and natural sounding. So you'll see what it does. It's just taking those. So you can just see what it's doing. It's just capturing some of those S's. And if I can play the delta. So you can hear there, that's the delta, that's the stuff it's removing. And so it's only taking out a tiny, tiny bit. It's just removing a little bit of the attack of those S's. They're not really very problematic in this. Like I said, the mix was good. So I just put that on just to kind of finesse those S's. Because I know I'm going to make this whole thing louder. So it's a bit of a precautionary move on my part. So yeah, it's just doing that, just a little de-esser. You could also use your normal EQ. You could also use something like Soothe as well. I like this one. It's really good. I love TDR plugins. I'm not sponsored, but I would be. I'm open to it. And then, so that's it. So there's not too much to explain on that side for this specific track with the reduction side of things, because I'm kind of happy with it. So before it goes out, I've been really loving this Michelangelo EQ. This is a tube-based EQ. It's based on an actual hardware unit. And for me, this is really close to an actual tube hardware unit. It sounds very tubey, which is rare for plugins. Usually they never really nail that. So I'm just doing some real tiny subtle bits on here, like 0.2 aggression. These are 5 is your starting point. So I'm just adding a tiny bit of low end, tiny bit of sort of high mids, and a tiny bit of like really high air. So I'll play you a before and after, and you'll be pushed to even hear what it's doing, I think. So that's without. When you see me click this, that'll be with. But the proof is so hard, it's bad decision can't feel wrong. I've been lonely when you hold me. Feels like all my demons are gone. So there you go. It's very subtle, but it's nice. It's just adding a little bit. I just really like the sound of this plugin. It just does something really nice. So I've added that on. So that's going to the mix. And then this is going out of Hilo 1 and 2, which is sending out to my chain. And that means it's coming out to all of this stuff. So I'll talk you through. The computer goes out to the dangerous liaison, and each of these numbers has a piece of gear patched into it. So for number 1, we have this Curve Bender EQ. 2 is the Dangerous Compressor. 3 is the Great River EQ. 4 is the big Unfairchild Valve Compressor. 5 is this TK mid-side EQ. And then 6 is a limiter, which is in a rack over there that you can't see. So it's going out to my hardware units, and I'll talk you through what I've done. Basically with hardware, it's mostly additive stuff. I'm using my hardware to add to the signal. So that's EQ, that's gain, a little bit of compression, and some harmonic saturation. So in this instance, the first unit is my Curve Bender. My Curve Bender is it's a really nice EQ, and here I'm just adding half a dB, which is tiny amount, at 500 Hertz and 800 Hertz. So for this one, I just wanted to thicken out the lower range of the vocal a little bit. Obviously, with being a female vocal, it's nice and bright already. And I just wanted to add just a little bit of weight in that sort of mid-range, low, well, kind of mid-range, 500 to 800 Hertz. Everyone's got their own ideas of low, mid and high, but I'd call that a mid-range. And as well as that tiny EQ move, there's transformers in the Curve Bender that also add a little saturation in the low end. So it's kind of just has a tiny bit of a boost anyway, just running it through the unit. Again, it's very subtle. So I'll tell you what, I'll play you a before and after the Curve Bender, and it's going to be, again, it's so subtle, but let's try that. So this is without. This is with. Without. And with. So could you hear that? I'm not sure how well you'll hear this unless you've got really good monitoring going on. So if you're listening on a phone or a laptop, you probably won't hear these tiny changes. You need to be in have a good monitoring or some really decent headphones to hear sort of those half a dB moves. But hopefully what you'll hear is I'm doing subtle little moves, but once I've done a few of them, it'll start building up to actually you'll be able to hear the change. So next step, we've gone out of the Curve Bender, we're going into another EQ, which is a Great River EQ, and this has a shelf up at 22K, so a bit of air, a bit of that high end, and I've added 1.5 dB of that. So I'll do a quick before and after with that in and out. I tell you what I'm going to do actually. I'm going to boost that really high so you can hear, so you can kind of tune your ear into what I'm doing. So I'm going to boost that, like the maximum is 7 dB on here. Right, so here's 7 dB of the 22K. And without. And with. Without. So you should be able to hear that. So now I'm going to dial it right back to 1.5. So sometimes with these subtle EQ moves, it's good to just really crank them to tune your ear into where they are, and then you start backing it off, and it's a bit easier to pick up the subtle moves. So I'll try to remember to do that a bit more for these. So the reason why I've done that is for that air, that super high end. It's just kind of giving a lift to the cymbals, to the upper bits of the acoustic guitar, and just a little bit to the vocals as well. Just sounds nice having that airy top end on it, and it's especially nice, this EQ, the 22K EQ point just sounds really nice. I really like it. So next thing is another EQ I've put in, and this is for my mid-side EQ, and this is just doing another couple of half a dB bits, and this is doing half a dB boost in the middle of the signal. Because this EQ is split into mid and side, that means anything that's panned down the center I can EQ, and anything that's panned off to the left and right I can EQ separately. So this is really handy for the low end, or just EQing the mid and side separately. So this has got a tiny boost on the low end just to lift up that kick, the kick drum and the bass a little bit, and then it's just got a little touch at 2.4K, and that's kind of where the vocals are, so it's just to give those a little bit of presence, but only in the middle of the signal. So I'll tell you what, I'll do another one where I crank those up so you can hear a before and after. So this is the bass cranked.
But the proof is so hard, it's bad decision can't feel wrong.
And that's without.
I've been lonely when you hold me.
And that's with.
Feels like all my demons are gone.
So that's 4 dB, but I'm only giving it a half because I think that the overall balance is pretty good. I just wanted a tiny little lift there. And then I'm doing the same with 2.4K, so I'll crank that up.
But the proof is so hard, it's bad decision
Without.
can't feel wrong.
With.
I've been lonely when you hold me. Feels like all my
Without.
demons are gone.
So again, hopefully you can hear when I crank it, you can sort of tune your ears into where I'm EQing and why. And the reason that you sometimes want to just EQ the middle is because, say, quite often your kick and bass are very down the middle, they're sort of monoed. So there's no point EQing the whole stereo signal if you just want to tighten up that bass and kick. And the same for the sort of higher up frequencies. If I'm trying to bring out a main vocal, the main vocal is always going to be sitting bang in the middle. So if I'm trying to affect that, that's why I'm using the mid side rather than EQing the mids and the side at the same time on a stereo EQ. So I hope that makes sense. That's my EQ decisions. So that's 3 units, all doing little bits. I'll do a before and after of all 3. So see if you can hear what all 3 are doing. So I'm going to start with them off. This is no EQ.
But the proof is so hard, it's bad decision
And with.
can't feel wrong. I've been
Without.
lonely when you hold me. Feels
With.
like all my demons are
Without.
gone. I
With.
don't know which of you two.
So, excuse me. Hopefully you're starting to hear that now that there's a few of these being kind of stacked up. If I played you just one of the half a dB moves, you'd really struggle to hear it. But once you start doing a few subtle moves, it slowly starts building, and you start shaping the song into sort of how you want it. So the next big thing is the curve, not the Curve Bender, the UTA compressor. This is a big old valve compressor, and I use this for 2 things. One is compression, you might have guessed that, being a compressor. But the other thing I'm using this for is just gain and saturation. Because it's got loads of valves in, valves saturate sound in quite a nice, harmonically pleasing way. So they add harmonics. And most of the time, it sounds good. you're kind of thickening the signal without just turning it up. And that really helps with perceived loudness. That's how you get loudness, basically. If you can just turn volume up, but that's different to adding harmonic content. And that's what this does really well. I've only just turned this on this morning, so usually you want an hour for it to warm up properly. So it might not be sounding and performing at its best, but it's fine. For the sake of this video, you'll get the picture of what it's doing anyway. So I'll do the same thing. I'll do a little before and after, and then you'll be able to hear this one. I think I'm doing a couple of like 2 dB of gain, and I can't remember how much gain reduction it's doing, but I'll let you know in a sec. So let's go back to Studio One. This is without the Unfairchild. With. I've been lonely when you hold me. Feels like all my demons are gone. So hopefully you can hear that's a bit more obvious than the subtle EQ moves I was doing. We're not doing loads of compression. I don't like to compress much at the mastering stage. That's usually taken care of already at the mix stage. The mix is usually has some compression. This one certainly has, so I know that I don't need to do a lot. So let's just find like a super loud bit and see what we're doing. Let me flip the camera to the my phone as well above. So I've got my phone above so you can see. So yeah, let's play. We're doing less than half a dB in these sort of first bits. So let's skip to a loud bit and see. I think this looks loud here. So that's the absolute loudest bit in the track, and that was doing about 1.5 dB's worth of compression. So that's not a crazy amount of compression. Let's just go back to my camera here. So yeah, so that's not a crazy amount of compression, but it is just keeping the super loud bits, giving them a bit of dynamic control, and we're getting the volume and the sort of harmonic saturation from the Unfairchild and all those lovely valves. So the next thing in the analog chain is my limiter. That's always on last, and that is to prevent stuff clipping when it's going back into the computer. So the signal's coming out, running through my analog gear and then going back into the computer, but we don't want that clipping on its way back in, because it won't sound very nice. There are some people that do clip their converters. Certain converters actually sound nice when they're doing that, but mine are super clean, super transparent, so it's not like a creative thing that I like to do with my converters. But what I do have on this limiter, which is a Bettermaker Darthlimiter, is a why are the fireworks going off? I've no idea why that just happened. Yeah, that's weird. Anyway, I don't know how or why I did that. Some fireworks happened. So what was I saying? Darthlimiter has a harmonic saturation thing on it. And on this one, I've added some saturation at 200 Hertz. So let's go and we'll play the track and I'll do you the before and after. But what I'll do is I will crank the harmonic saturation on here as well, so you can hear what it's doing. So let's go over, and this is going to probably sound awful, by the way.
Lights, you don't want to go home.
So that's without.
You've been passing to my bed.
That's weird.
Whiskey on your breath and a dent in your
That's without.
halo. Wish I
So that is at 100%. So that's way too much. But I just wanted to do that so it's really obvious for you to hear what this thing is doing. So like I say, that's 100%. I'm actually doing it down at 35. So this is off.
lights, you don't want to go home.
On.
Just know you've been passing to my bed. Whiskey on your breath and a dent.
So that's more like it. That's the kind of a lot more subtle, and again, it's just kind of lifting and thickening that low end. And the difference between that and an EQ is that it's a harmonic saturator. So it's not just boosting one point in the frequency range, it's adding all the upper harmonics of that. So it's thickening a wider area, not just adding gain to a specific point, if that makes sense. And hopefully you'll have heard when it was boosted up at 100 Hertz, like how it just completely thickens all that low end out. So that's all the analog stuff I'm doing. So let's do a complete before and after of everything all at once. Let me go over to Studio One. So we'll go, this is everything off.
Lights, you don't want to go home.
And on.
Just know you've been passing to my bed. Whiskey on your breath and a dent in your halo. Wish I could deny a crazy look in your eyes. You look at it and say.
So there you go. So hopefully that's getting more and more obvious with the changes. The first little EQ change, maybe you didn't hear as much and it wasn't as obvious. It's like, it's hardly doing anything. But with 3 or 4 or 5 little things, it's slowly starting to come together. And that's kind of the aim of mastering. We're not trying to change the mix. We're not trying to do loads. We're really trying to honour the intention of the mix, and just finesse it a little bit and just add some little subtle things just to improve it, and to improve it for when it's being played back off loads of different stuff. So this is now going to be captured back into the computer, and we're going to add on our loudness stuff. So let's go back in Studio One. Where are we? There we go. So this will get recorded onto this channel, and then what I like to do is so I've got my tone, I've kind of shaped things how I like them. I've got most of the things that I want doing now. I've got the track how I want it to sound. The next stage for me, and this is my process, this is not how every mastering engineer works, but this is how I do it. The next stage is to just get it up to the loudness that it needs to be for streaming and CD and that kind of stuff. It's already pretty close. It's already nice and loud. And because I'm using hardware and valves and transformers and saturating stuff, I don't need to use too much digital limiting and clipping, but I do still need a little bit to get it up to a good loudness. So I've got a loudness meter over here. This is Ulean. It's pretty good. This is my typical loudness chain for modern genres. I have, first thing is a clipper, standard clip. So this is clipping stuff, and it has a saturator on as well. I'm not using the saturator on this track, but I do use it quite very often. So maybe in a future video you'll see me playing about with that a little bit more. So let's find a bit of a louder bit in the song.
In your eyes, you look at it the same way.
So you can see the little red bits there. Those are the bits that are being clipped. So during the verses,
Been a long time since it felt like
there's only the odd tiny little bit that's getting clipped. So that's probably a big kick or a snare hit. It's all more sort of transient stuff that you really want to clip. Yeah, I kind of could do a whole hour-long video on just clipping, but we'll save that for another time. I won't go too deep into it, but clippers are best for getting fast transients, for just sort of chopping off the tops of those to allow you a little more headroom into a limiter. And again, it depends on the genre. For this sort of stuff, I don't want to do too much clipping. For more aggressive and louder genres, a bit more clipping is totally fine. So let's go to a louder bit and see how much clipping we're doing.
you're looking at me tonight.
So there you go. We're still hardly doing any clipping. The compressor's taking care of the louder bits, and the clipper there is just to shave off any like snare hits or kick drums that are louder than sort of the average. Say if you've got a drummer playing, a live drummer, the beauty of live drums is that they are dynamic and they're different, and so not every snare hit and kick is going to be exactly the same volume, which is what we want. We want that live feel. But the clipper's there, and it's just shaving off tops of stuff that might just sneak through the compressor because they're so quick, and it's just allowing us like a nice even headroom going into our limiter. So next up, after the clipper, so the track's gone out through the analog stuff, back into the computer, through the clipper a little bit, just shaving off the peak. Then I'll get my Limitless on. This is DMG Limitless. It's a fantastic transparent limiter. And I'm only doing 2 dB of gain here, and the ceiling is at -1. So this is a transparent limiter, nice and safe, lots of headroom still. So let's have a look at how much limiting it's doing.
In your eyes, you look at it the same way. You're looking at me tonight.
So there you go. You can see it's all the green bits there that are bits that are getting limited. So you can see it's not really doing very much, which is great. That's what we want. We're adding 2 dB of gain, so I'll do a quick before and after of that.
In your eyes, you look at it the same way. You're looking at me tonight.
So there you go. So you can hear that that's just adding a little step up in volume, and the limiter's just taking care of those sort of the loudest parts, the peaks, but it's not completely crushing it. Now what I sometimes do is have 2 limiters on. So I have a Fabfilter Pro-L2 on after the DMG Limitless, and there's a lot of myths around stacking limiters. You don't need to stack limiters at all. But the reason I've got 2 on is because they sound different, and they're kind of doing 2 different things. The first one, the DMG, is nice and transparent and nice and clean, nice and safe, with a -1 dB ceiling. Excuse me. So that's nice and safe. The ceiling is something that every mastering engineer has their own take on. You know, you probably read that it has to be at -1 or -2. But in reality, in the actual industry, engineers are mastering louder than that, because that's what clients want, that's what people want to hear. They want that loudness, they want that impact. So I have Pro-L2 on after DMG to add a little bit of gain and just higher that ceiling up as well. And in modern mode, I think Fabfilter, it actually has a sound to it. It actually has a bit of a presence to it. And people like that. That's kind of very much part of the sound these days, especially for streaming stuff. So I'm adding a little more gain. The ceiling's gone up as well. And it's giving it an extra bit of sort of, what's the best word, like presence, a bit of grit maybe. So let's hear and see what this one's doing.
In your eyes, you look at it and say, well, you're looking at me tonight.
So there you go. It's still not doing a lot. It's still switching off between peaks, which is good. So we're still maintaining some dynamic range. And if we look in the verses,
This bad decision can feel wrong. I've been lonely when you hold me.
you can see that it's really switched off, and it's just those dun dun tsh, those big beats that are when it's kicking in. So that's how I like to use them. Limiters, or peak limiters as they are originally known, are for catching peaks. then shouldn't be used for just slamming the whole track. And this is so common. You'll see people going like, "Oh, I'm making my track really loud," and the limit is just clamping on everything. And when everything's loud, nothing's loud, if that makes sense. Loudness is we only perceive loudness when it's in relation to something quiet, which is dynamic range, right? So when something's quiet and then something comes in louder, we feel that loudness, we feel sort of the attack, the punch of it. That's how our ears work. But if we slam a limiter and the whole track is just completely at the same level, it loses all that. The LUFS reading might say it's higher, but it'll just sound dull, and it'll just be one continuous thing. So I like to try and make sure the limiter is at least switching off at points. It's not just on the whole time.
This bad decision can feel wrong. I've been lonely when you hold me.
Yeah.
Feels like all my
You will actually see this, people mastering like that, and it just kills it. It sounds terrible, totally kills it. Yeah. Now there's some genres when you do want to be a bit more aggressive with the limiting as well, or the clipping, because maybe electronic, louder dance stuff actually suits that sound. But if it's got humans in it and they're playing real instruments, yeah, you still want to maintain some dynamic range. So that's my 3 sort of loudness things. So let's have a listen with all 3 on, and then I'll try it. I'll switch them all on and off. There'll be a slight delay, but you'll still be able to hear it. So let's switch them all off. Let's just hide the clipper down here. Look. So they're all off.
This bad decision can feel wrong. I've been lonely when you hold me. Feels like all my demons are gone. I don't.
Oh, actually, I just realised I made a mistake. I set the gain back down to 0. It was at 1.5 down here on the L2. So let's do that again. So they're all off.
This bad decision can feel wrong. I've been lonely when you hold me. Feels like all my demons are gone. I don't know.
So hopefully you can hear that. That's a decent volume difference, and it's fairly transparent tone-wise, but it is adding a good bit of volume to the overall track. And that's it. That's the whole audio part of the mastering done. So I'll capture a bit, and then we can do an A/B with before and after everything that we've done. So let's just capture a little bit of, I'll tell you what, let's go for a louder bit in the chorus.
You're looking at me tonight. Does she know?
Cool, so there we've just captured a little snippet. So as I explained at the start of the video, this is our mix, this track. This is just the analog capture, so all the stuff I did with my hardware, and then I've added the clipping and the limiters on top of the analog capture, and that's what this digital track is capturing. So this is getting everything, and this is just getting the analog stuff. And the reason I like to do that is because quite often the analog stuff is the tone that I like, and the digital is getting the loudness up. So I might actually want to go back and I might have a revision note from the artist, and sometimes I can go back and just work from the analog capture. It might be a loudness thing, or it might be a digital thing that I have to do as a revision, so I can just work from that. Or sometimes it might be, I might just decide halfway through the song, actually, this is way too loud. I just want to pull back the digital stuff, but I don't want to alter the analog stuff. So I have that flexibility of working from both things then. So if we take these off record armed, I solo the digital one, and then I change this on here, turn all the plugins off, we should be able to listen to the master on this channel and the mix. So when you see me flip between with the yellow solo button, you'll see that this is the mastered one, this is the original mix. So let's try having a listen to those.
You're looking at me tonight. Does she know?
So there you go, hopefully you can hear that, you know, pretty big volume difference. And you know, there's all those little bits of EQ in there that we've done as well. So that's the mastering process. Reduction, we've taken away bits we don't want, the sibilance stuff. We've added stuff that we do want, we want to hear a bit more of, and then we've added the end loudness stuff on too. This is a track I did a little while ago, so I've recalled the settings, and I think I've got everything right as the original master. The finished master looks a little bit more slammed than I remember, so I might have got a setting different here or there, but anyway, that doesn't matter. The point is just to walk you through what I'm doing and like my thought process behind what I'm doing. Then of course we have all the exporting, downsampling, adding metadata, if it's going for a CD, doing a DDP file, if it's going to a vinyl, sequencing vinyl files and all that kind of stuff. But all that stuff is for another video. So I think that's it. I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts and hear your questions. Like I said, I'm going to do a load more of these and just walk you through what I'm doing. And the crucial bit is why I'm doing it, like what I'm thinking. That's the key with mastering, really. You could have done all this with plugins as well, by the way. I like my hardware because I'm old and that's how I learn. So I really like stuff, but plugins are great and sound fantastic these days. So there's no reason that you need all this hardware to master for yourself. So there we go. I think that's it for today. I'll stop waffling and, like I say, shout with any questions, shout if I can help. I hope everyone's good. And as always, I'll see you next time.